Hi there, my name is Jarek Barwise, and this is my Temagami Area Provincial Parks Management Plan, or RECL 3P06. Um, so I did my project on the Temagami Area Provincial Parks. They consist of 5 Ontario provincial parks, the largest one being Lady Evelyn Smoothwater, and the other 4 are Maccoby Grays River Provincial Park, Obabaka River Provincial Park, Solace Provincial Park, and Sturgeon River Provincial Park. So the Temagami area is located about 100 km north of North Bay. It is approximately 650,000 hectares in size. The 5 provincial parks make up just over 100,000 hectares of that 650,000. So that's just less than a sixth is provincial parks. There's 8 conservation areas, conservation reserves that surround the park, making up another 42,000 hectares of protected area. And then the remaining about 500,000 hectares of area is unregulated crown lands. Temagami is considered one of North America's premier canoeing destinations. It has over 2,400 square K of interconnected canoe routes and the history of Temagami. Temagami has been the native homeland of the Tumagama Ishnabai Aboriginal people for the past 6,000 years. So the Tamagama Ashnaba means deep water people. Starting in the 1800s, a recreational canoeing movement kind of started, and extensive canoe routes started to bring in tourists. The parks officially became provincial parks in 2004 with the introduction of overnight camping fees and the hiring of park wardens. Previously, they were nature reserves, but in 2004 they became official provincial parks. Temagami is very important to the local area, both because of its cultural significance and its natural resources. There's an ongoing clash between the commercial objective of the forestry industry and the preferences for the recreational users. So some of the natural features of the area. Temagami has one of the oldest growth pine forests in the entire world. They also have some of the world's oldest rock surfaces, tons of vast lakes and hills, such as Maple Mountain and Ishpetina Ridge, which is actually the highest point in Ontario. It has the only 2 lakes of origin of the endangered Aurora trout, which is a species at risk, and it's actually considered endangered in Ontario. And then the park has tons of wildlife opportunities, obviously tons of birds, and many other types of fish. So the site classification. Lady Evelyn Smoothwater is classified as a wilderness class park. So wilderness parks are areas where visitors travel by non-mechanized means, so things like canoeing, kayaking, hiking. Also, nature functions freely. Visitors experience solitude, challenge, and integration with nature. So the 4 other parks, so Maccoby Grays, Obabaka, Solace, and Sturgeon, they're considered waterway class parks. So these types of parks are protected recreational water routes, aquatic ecosystems, and associated natural and cultural features that provide opportunity for recreation and education. So they're both classified a little bit differently, obviously, but they both provide tons of opportunity for recreation, just a little bit different. Some of the activities in Temagami would be things like geocaching, snowshoeing, hiking, kayaking, so fishing, also ice fishing, cross-country skiing, dog sledding, mountain biking. There's also some like snowmobiling, ATVs, and motorboat use. So these do have specific regulations and usage zones, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. The biggest draw for outdoor recreation opportunity is canoe traveling and recreational canoeing in Temagami. Like I said, it's a world-class for canoers. Here's a nice view of the lake. So ATVs is also a big part of some of the recreational opportunities in the area. Some of the conflicts for recreation. So a possible conflict is between the non-motorized users and the motorized users. So in all the parks except for Lady Evelyn Smoothwater, they're allowed to use motorized vehicles to a certain extent in certain places. So snowmobile use is permitted through access on the adjacent Crown land. They do have the designated trails and park superintendents, but obviously people want the Temagami area to be used for different things. And motorized sports and non-motorized sports kind of conflict each other. The canoers don't want the motorboats there, and the motorboats don't want millions of canoes around. All these users can create perceptions of crowding, noise pollution, and exceeding carrying capacity, disturbing the wildlife for each other. Finding the right balance between user groups and the usage of the Temagami area is the key to preventing conflict. So some solutions would be specific zoning and restricted areas for motorized vehicles. So even more than they have now, putting them on actually like specific lakes and giving them specific restrictions on things like horsepower and types of engines, things like that. Seasonal usage could be a solution, so creating windows of time where certain activities are permitted. That's kind of like hunting, kind of like a week or a month for each activity. Create regulations on the amount of motorized vehicles allowed. That would directly impact the number of boats that you could put on the lakes. Working on diverging the ATV and snowmobile trails around the provincial parks. So keeping the snowmobiles and ATVs actually just completely out of the parks is a possible solution. And maybe sport fishing regulations. Well, I'm going to skip over this. Basically, the parks are governed by some political acts and management policies set in place by the Ontario government and some by the federal government. The Ontario Parks' overall aim is to provide a variety of outdoor recreation opportunities and to protect the provincial significant land. So some of the management objectives for the Temagami area were adaptive management, so that's always continually improving your management directions and evaluating effectiveness, and always changing. Land management, so protecting species and ecosystems and preserving ecological integrity. Another one is industrial and commercial use, so no mining or mineral extraction or commercial operations occur inside the parks, but some does occur in the Temagami area in general. Vegetation management's another one, so that's natural vegetation and natural restoration. Forest fires, wildlife management, so providing information and education programs and closure of areas to lower the negative impact of human-wildlife encounters. Non-native and native species controls, protecting species at risk, and looking at cultural heritage, making sure they're working with First Nations people and the local communities in the planning process. The four objectives of the Ontario Provincial Park System are to protection, recreation, heritage appreciation, and tourism. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but Lady Evelyn Smoothwater fits into this by protecting natural features, wilderness landscapes, cultural resources, and providing education and recreational experiences. The remaining four parks offer high-quality recreational and educational experiences, as well as serve as a link to the rest of the Temagami backcountry. So I think the carrying capacity in the Temagami area is not exceeded just because it's such a large area and there's such a large number of visitors. I'm not going to talk too much about carrying capacity, but the ecological carrying capacity of the area, in my mind, currently is not exceeded. Previously, during times of deforestation, I'd say the ecological integrity or the ecological carrying capacity was exceeded, but in modern times, I do not think. I'm going to skip to my management procedures. So I based my management plan off the visitor's experience and resource protection model. The current management plan they had in place, I thought looked like it based off the recreation opportunity spectrum. It was based on providing the parks with the most amount of recreational opportunity as possible for visitors. Why did I use the the VERB model? Because it addresses social and ecological carrying capacity. It's transactive planning and community involvement. It's specific zoning regulations and area plans, and it incorporates visitor experience. Temagami is going to benefit because different areas do require specific zone managements for different reasons. So, for example, the lakes with the Aurora trout need no human impacts at all, whereas other places like Diamond Lake, you can have fishing boats. So other things would be having local communities involved in the process, maybe monitoring and constantly improving management objectives and diverging the impact. So my management strategy, I want to lessen the social carrying capacity in the high traffic areas of the park, specifically zoning the motor sport or motorized vehicles into separate areas far away from the non-motorized vehicles. This will reduce noise pollution, crowding, it'll be less impact on the wilderness, and it will overall give people the impression they are more immersed in wilderness. So canoe routes will be zoned specifically to allow non-motorized vehicles only. During the winter seasons, kind of the same thing. The snowmobile trails will be out of distance from snowshoers and cross-country skiers so that they can't hear each other, they can't see each other. The idea is if they can't hear each other, see each other, they won't even know each other, they're there. Also, having seasonal regulations to take into account the areas that are heavily used while each activity is being taking place. Sorry. So making seasonal regulations will help give parts of the land like time to recover, and yeah, information. We're gonna monitor it through surveys handed out by email. Another way would be collect feedback through online forums. Just in summary, the most significant aspect of the planning process in my plan is taking all the parties into account and making decisions. The Temagami area is of great significance to so many people. The Aboriginals, the locals, the tourists, and all the environmental considerations must be all taken into account during every step of the planning process. The event management strategy will improve social carrying capacity by incorporating visitor experience in the plan and creating specific zones for recreational activities. Thanks for listening to my presentation. Merry Christmas.